If you've ever had a boss you hated, let me tell you something. I didn't just hate mine. I feared him, respected him, and ultimately outplayed him. I worked at a mid-sized marketing firm for almost 6 years. I started as an intern and clawed my way up to senior strategist. I wasn't flashy, but I was good at my job. My clients trusted me, my projects delivered, and for a while, life felt stable. Then came him, my new boss, Richard. Richard was the kind of man who thrived on control. Expensive suits, fake charm, and a constant habit of borrowing ideas from his team and presenting them as his own. At first, I thought I could stomach it. Lots of execs are like that. But Richard had one fatal flaw. He didn't just want to succeed. He wanted to break people. The first time I noticed, he accidentally copied me on an email to upper management, calling me unreliable because I'd taken a sick day. Another time, he presented my campaign draft to a client without my name attached, and when the client complimented it, he smirked and said, "Thanks, I pulled some late nights." I stayed quiet. That's what you do in corporate life, right? Pick your battles. But then he crossed a line I couldn't ignore. One of my biggest clients, let's call them NovaTech, had been with me for years. They were practically a feather in my cap. Richard knew this. So when contract renewal came up, I expected to handle it like always. Instead, Richard pulled me aside and said, "Don't worry about NovaTech. I'll take the meeting. Focus on something else." That was weird. It was my account, but I kept my cool. A week later, I discovered Richard had told NovaTech I was being phased out of senior projects because I was underperforming. He positioned himself as their new lead contact. My client, the one I'd built trust with for 4 years, emailed me directly, confused, asking if I was okay. That night, I sat in my car for an hour in the office parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, furious. My boss had just stolen my biggest account and poisoned my reputation. And worse, he'd done it with that smug little smile, like I was a piece on his chessboard. I didn't explode. I didn't quit. I decided to plan. If Richard wanted to play games, I'd play chess, quietly. First, I started documenting. Every stolen idea, every suspicious email, every time he tried to undermine me. I built a private archive, times, dates, names. Second, I made allies, the interns and juniors he barked at. I bought them coffee, I listened, I encouraged them. Slowly, they started venting to me. Stories of Richard padding invoices, making off-the-books deals with smaller vendors, even harassing a new hire at an after-work party. I took notes. But here's where the luck really turned. One of the interns casually mentioned that Richard sometimes asked them to edit numbers on reports before sending them upstairs. I asked for specifics. They showed me. He was falsifying client metrics to make his performance look stronger. Now I had something dangerous. I couldn't just run to HR. Anyone who's worked in corporate knows HR protects the company, not you. If I accused Richard with half-baked evidence, he'd spin it, and I'd be the one unemployed. So I went slow. I made myself invisible, no arguments, no resistance. I smiled, nodded, and let him think he'd broken me. Meanwhile, I quietly reached out to NovaTech. I apologized for the confusion and told them I was still fully dedicated to their success, but that per company protocol, Richard would be their main contact. I could tell they weren't thrilled. Behind the scenes, I set up a small, locked spreadsheet. Every falsified report, every invoice discrepancy, every off-site meeting that coincided with suspicious expense charges, all logged. I even convinced one of the interns to forward me a few of Richard's "edit these numbers" emails. And then came my ace, the company server. See, Richard wasn't very tech-savvy. He'd save private files in shared folders, just renamed with boring titles. I stumbled on one labeled Q4 Adjustments Final. Inside, a Word doc outlining kickback deals with a third-party vendor. Actual fraud. Now I could have blown everything up right there. But I wanted more. I wanted him not just fired, I wanted him ruined. So I let him keep digging. Over the next 2 months, Richard grew bolder. He took another client from me. He openly mocked me in meetings, saying things like, "Maybe my name can take notes. Strategy might be too advanced." He thought he'd won. But I was patient. I made sure to CC the right people in subtle ways. A project delay? I documented Richard's last-minute changes. A client confused? I forwarded their questions and his contradictory instructions. Slowly, people started doubting him. Meanwhile, I cultivated a relationship with someone in compliance, not HR compliance. The folks whose literal job is to sniff out fraud. Casually over coffee, I dropped hints. Weird how Richard's numbers are always higher than the rest of ours, right? That got their attention. The bomb dropped at the annual leadership retreat. Big fancy event, all executives present, even some clients invited. Richard strutted around like a peacock, bragging about his growth numbers and his strong client relationships. Then came the presentation. Each department head had to show their yearly results. Richard went up, flashing his doctored slides. Big numbers, big smiles. And then, the projector glitched, or so it seemed. Because suddenly, instead of his slides, a very different deck appeared. Mine. Months of evidence, compiled neatly. Side-by-side comparisons of raw data versus his doctored reports. Emails instructing interns to falsify metrics. Expense reports with matching kickback payments. And the smoking gun, the vendor doc he'd hidden on the server. The room went dead silent, then people started whispering. An executive cleared his throat. Richard's face drained of color. Where did this come from? He stammered. I stood up, calmly. From your files, Richard. From our interns, from clients who were tired of being lied to. Everything you see here is verifiable. And it's already been shared with compliance. Boom. Richard tried to bluster. He called me vindictive, jealous, unstable, but the evidence was airtight. Compliance stepped in immediately. Security escorted him out that very night. Over the next weeks, investigations uncovered years of misconduct, fraud, harassment, shady deals. NovaTech terminated their contract with our firm, but not before reaching out to me privately, offering me a position if I ever left. Richard's name hit industry blacklists. Word spread fast. He went from golden boy to radioactive in a matter of days. And the cherry on top, remember those interns he mistreated? They testified. Turns out, 2 of them had kept their own records because they'd felt uncomfortable. Their statements sealed his fate. Richard didn't just lose his job. He lost his career. As for me, I was offered his position. I declined. Too messy. Instead, I took NovaTech up on their offer and left the company entirely. Higher pay, better culture, a team that actually respected me. Sometimes I think back to Richard's smirk when he stole my client. He thought he'd checkmated me. But the truth is, he never realized he was playing chess against someone who already knew the endgame. And the best part? I never raised my voice, never broke a rule. I let him destroy himself with his own greed. That's the kind of revenge that lingers.